So our end result looks something like this. As soon as you open your application, it has this default theme, but when you choose your WOM, it turns your application into this another theme. And everything it changes. Your font is changed, your background is changed, your border color is changed, your fields are changed, your boxes are changed, even different fonts has been used here. It just happens with one click. See how everything changes with one click. That's all happening. Hello everyone, so welcome back to our another episode of this theme engine. In the last part we saw how we can load our color directly from the JSON file with the help of this engine to our GUI, right? So if I run our application right now, we have this red background that we did in our last tutorial. And this red background is not coming from straight QML, but it is being loaded through this engine, and then this engine is loading this default theme.json file, which has this background as red, right? We have seen this before. Now, I'll just change this to default. If I go to my Figma here, our actual background was this color, right? So I'll just copy paste it here. So this is where all our properties going to be placed, right, for our GUI. And the main idea behind this, right now we got back to our normal UI. The main idea is to change these files, to change the theme. And these, right now we only have this default theme.json file, which has all these properties that we are trying to load, right? And if you want to change the theme, you're not going to go to your code and then change it there. We don't need to like touch the code or anything. We are just going to change the JSON, and that is going to change the theme. In today's episode, what we are planning to do is we will like give user option to choose the theme from the GUI, and we'll also see how to load fonts. Why are you trying to load fonts from the engine itself? See, the thing is, let me run this application. Right now, I have this application on the screen, right? And let's say this is a business type theme. And if I want to change to something funky in the future, let's say we have a theme called funky. And if I want to change to business type theme to funky theme, then I might change all the colors. But this text here, it doesn't give me a funky feeling. So the fonts should also look funky. And to change the fonts with your theme is also very crucial. Not just changing the color, but changing the fonts and changing the radius of your rectangle and so on and so everything, right? So all those properties will be placed inside the JSON file, but we're only going to see how to load our fonts from the JSON and then use it according to our theme. Let's say right now, this default theme is using a default font given from the system. So this font that you are seeing, the text font, is the default font from the Qt itself. We have not loaded any fonts as of now. We have not used any fonts in this entire tutorial. But in this one, we're going to load fonts, and then we're going to load it in a way that if you change the JSON file, your font is also going to be changed. That's the whole plan. And after we do so, we'll change the theme from the graphical user interface. User comes here and then gets an option to choose between the themes that we have given. So let's do this. Right now, if you see our default theme.json file, we have these few properties, right? And inside this theme, we have something called color, which has all the colors for our components and for our text, right? So just like color, I'll create another field here, and I'll call this typography. And this typography, you have comma here. Here, I'll say a font family. This is where I'm going to load our fonts. As of now, we don't even have any fonts here in our application. So before loading fonts, what I want to do is I want to download some fonts that I want to use. So for that, I'll just go into Google, and in this fonts.google.com, I want to load, let's say, Ubuntu font. So I'll choose this Ubuntu, and then I'll say get font from here. And I want this Ubuntu. I'll need this one. And let's use this Ubuntu and this Open Sans font. Okay, and I'll download these two fonts. Now the zip file is downloaded. If I go to my download directory, here is the zip file. I'll unzip this, and here I have two directories, Ubuntu font and the Open Sans font, right? And if I go into Ubuntu, I have these few many fonts here. This Ubuntu Bold Italic, and all the TTF files. In Open Sans, inside this static folder, I have all other fonts for this Open Sans. Now our job is to load these two fonts. And these two fonts are only going to be used for for this default theme, right? And if we are going to make another theme, that theme should load some other fonts, not Ubuntu or Ubuntu. So let's just first set up for our default theme, and then we'll move to another one. So to load the theme, what we're going to do is just like how we created this theme.qrc, we create another font.qrc to load all the fonts that we need for this application. And to do that, I'll go to this hammer-like icon and then go to add new. And inside the security option, we have this security resource file, and we'll choose, and this will help us create a resource file inside this theme directory, right? I'll say font.qrc, let's say create font.qrc. Now it is already appearing here as it is already getting added to this thematic list that is inside this theme directory. Right now it has this extra resource keyword. I'll just remove this because this is the main keyword, and we have these two resources, one for theme, one for fonts. And inside font, if I go and open an editor, I want to add the fonts that I want. So I'll say I'll add a prefix, which is nothing but this, and I'll add files. Let me add it from our download directory, and let's add 4 fonts from each of these two fonts. I'll add 4 different fonts from Ubuntu and 4 different fonts from our Open Sans. By different fonts, I mean just different styles like this. So let's say one Ubuntu Bold, one Ubuntu Light, and one Ubuntu Medium, one Ubuntu Regular. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna use all of these 4, but I'm just loading 4 of these, right? You can load as many as you can. You can use as many as you like. So it doesn't even matter. I just like loading these fonts because in the future you might want to use different variant of these fonts, right? You might want to use bold, light, medium, regular, or so on. I'll also add for my Open Sans. Go into here, static. Similarly, I'll load one regular, one medium, one bold, and one light. Here's light. Perfect. Just copying it from download directory to our project directory. Copy it. Yes. And hit Control S to save this, so it will appear here on your project tree. Now, okay, understand this. Okay, now we have only included these files into our project directory, and we have loaded this in our font.qrc, but these fonts are not actually loaded into our system. It exists in our project, but it is not loaded to the application. So as of now, we cannot use this fonts. It's just there in the project. And to load these fonts, and I want to load these fonts, but not from the source itself, because these fonts will be changed with according to theme, like I said, right? So like hard coding this font initialization in the source file will only make you change your source file again and again when you change the font. So I'll just like how we have given colors for our components and text, I'll try to list all these fonts here in our JSON file. Inside the font family, I'll say I have this Open Sans. Let's say Ubuntu first. Font family, I would say this font 1. And this font one will have our Ubuntu font. And our font 2 is going to be Open Sans. Notice how I have like given this exact name here. And I'll tell you why. Now these are the exact family name of this, sorry, font family name of these fonts. And these names come directly from this TTF file. And Qt can read it from your TTF file. So how do I know these are the actual family name? If I go to our here inside this, see the family name is Open Sans for this. And this one, capital U, Ubuntu, right? Capital O, capital S. This is the exact family name. So I just given the same name here. And these are the exact name of our fonts. Now, I also want to give the path of our fonts. So I'll say family name is given. I would say font okay, comma here, and then font path will have path for Ubuntu, and here I'll make a list of strings where I'll store all the path. So make sure you copy the path instead of this URL. Copy this for Ubuntu. This is string list, okay? So this is one string which has one path for our bold, and another will be light. I'll copy all of these paths. It's just like creating an array, right? List is just a array, an array. So I'm copying this, copy path, and paste it here for our regular. Perfect. Now I need to load another font, right? Or another font is Open Sans. So open. Also going to store our list of paths. So copy bold, copy path here. Medium and regular. Perfect. Now I have listed all of these fonts inside my JSON file. Now how did we list these? So see, first I have this font family, which has the name of the font family. This is something that we are gonna call inside our QML. And these font paths here is, I have listed it here because we want to load it through these paths, right? This is where our actually font are located inside our project. So to use this font, the application have to reach out to this path and then reach out to this font to use it, right? So this is something that you'll call inside your QML. Like let's say, instead of color, you will just say typography.fontfamily.font1, and then you load Ubuntu. And this Ubuntu will load this font here from this font path, right? So that's why I have given the path here. But you'll not use this in QML, but we'll use this in our theme engine to load these fonts. And this will change, okay? Now, let's say in default theme.json file, we have this Ubuntu and Open Sans, right? And our font 1 and font 2 is Ubuntu and Open Sans. Let's say we have another theme that we are trying to load in our QML. Then our font 1 could be, let's say, Roboto, or our font 2 could be something else, like New Time Romans or something that other font, oh, sorry, other theme uses, right? And we'll change the name here and then the path of it here. And we'll still call this font 1 in QML. So even after loading different JSON files, you're just calling the font one, right, which has just different values. So you don't have to manually go and change the source code in your project. You just have to change the JSON file, that's all. So this is fine. Now that we have listed everything that we need in this project, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this to load it in the actual application. Like similarly how we read our color values in our theme engine, we need to read the values of our fonts, right, to load it. So we'll go into our theme manager source file here. Seems good here. What I'll do here is I'll try to access our font. So not in flatten, but in load theme. Okay. Now here, what I want to do is in raw theme has this theme dictionary, right? So our typography lies inside of this theme, and we have converted this theme into two map, means QVariant map. So our typography lies inside. If you go to default theme.json file, you see this typography exists inside the theme. So we have already reached inside the theme here. We have already reached inside the theme. We have chosen this key. Now we are pointing towards this, whatever is inside this theme, right, dictionary. So it is stored in this raw theme. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go more further inside this raw theme, into this typography, and into this font family, or let's say font path. I'll go inside this. So I'll say QVariant map, and I'll call this, let's say, fonts. And this fonts is going to reach out further inside our raw theme, which is just converting this theme into a QVariant. So we'll say raw theme find typography and convert that object into a QVariant. We'll say to map, right? Now this typography object is created as a QVariant. So in the JSON file, this typography object is now a QVariant. And we'll move further inside and then change this font path also to QVariant. So I'll go further inside here. I'll say QVariant map, QVariant map, a font path equal to here, equal to inside this font, which is storing the QVariant object typography. I'll say font dot find what font path, right? Is it font path? Font path. Okay. Good. Font path, and then convert that into QVariant. Now we have also reached out to this font path here object and then converted this into a QVariant. Now what we need to do is we need to manually load these fonts. And to do so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these in the function, right? Because these are just a variable. See, it's not a hard-coded Ubuntu font or a hard-coded open sans font. It could just vary, and it could vary with according to your JSON file. In this JSON file, we have this Ubuntu and open sans, but in other file, it could be some other fonts, right? Like I said, so please don't be confused in this one. So I'll move here and I'll just say load fonts. I'll make this function, let's say load fonts. I'll call this function, which is going to take a parameter of this QVariant map. I'll pass this font paths here. See, now I'm saying load this font from these font paths, which is a QVariant map, right? It has all the path to our fonts, right? And this function is supposed to load all of those fonts in our system. Now we don't have this function created. That's why we are getting an error. So let's quickly create it in our header file. Let's declare it, and then we'll create another one. So are we going to call this load font in other files? No. So I'll keep it inside private. I'll say void load fonts. And this is going to take what? QVariant, right, as a parameter. So I'll say const, because we don't want to change anything in this function, but just want to load it. So we don't want to change the value of that QVariant. So using const QVariant map, and we'll pull it by reference. I'll say font path. Okay, perfect. Let's move inside our theme.manager, but let's refactor this, add definition in our theme.manage.cpp. Now this is doing what? This is taking a QVariant map of our font path. Now this is only pushing this part into this function, right? Now we have to reach out to this Ubuntu and this Open Sans and then load all of these fonts. So what I'm going to say is I'll go inside here, and this function I'll say for, let's say, auto it. This is our iterator. I'll say font path dot begin. We're gonna loop from first to last of this font path QVariant begin until it doesn't reach the font path end. It's just like how we did it for color, right? So this iterator needs to keep on moving forward until it reaches the end. So we're just iterating over this QVariant. Now what we want to do is, as we iterate over it, let's say here inside font path, we'll move to this Ubuntu, right, which is storing a string list. This is a list of string, right? 1 string, 2 string, 3 string, 4 string. So I want to load each of those string into our font, into our this application. To do that, let's also iterate over the string in that list. So to iterate over that, I'll say for, let's say, your string we'll just say auto for now. Let's say to auto, and I'll say path, and this path is going to store what? All the values of our font path, right? So it dot value. What is this it dot value here? If you think properly, what is this it dot value? If you go into here, font path dot value is this Ubuntu, right? And this is the key, and this would be the value. In our case, this is the key, Ubuntu is the key, and this is the value. And this value right now is, I don't know in what format, but we have to manually change it to string so that we don't run into any exceptional cases or any unexpected behavior. So let's manually change it to string to avoid any conflicts. So it's better to store it in a variable. So I'll store it in a variable, let's say qstring list, and this list is going to store, qstring list is going to, I'll just say path here, list, and is going to store it dot value. Perfect. List is the value, and I'll convert this to string list. Now what are we saying here? Let's just see this part. Okay, we're saying we created this paths variable, and we're saying iterate over it and then find a value, and the value is what? If you go here, whenever you iterate over it, when you iterate over this key, this is the list of strings, right? This is the value. We're like storing this list into that variable, and also looping through this one and storing this into that variable, right? That's all we are doing. So both of those strings are now stored in this path, string list. And I'll say also loop inside this path here. Instead of it.value, I'll say as, and then keep it inside this path, and we're going to load each of these paths so that all of the fonts are loaded into the application. This is all the basic loop scheme, right? So I'll say load each of these fonts. So to load font into Qt, you have something called QFontDatabase. Now, what is QFontDatabase? It's a class given by Qt Core, and it is responsible, I think not Qt Core, but GUI. So we have a different library inside Qt instead of Qt Core. That's a GUI library. And this gives you this QFontDatabase class, which is well aware of this TTF file, which can load your font files, and it can also read your .ttf file. So it automatically knows the family name of your font. As soon as you load that .ttf file, this class is like, it becomes aware of that font, and it can like read all the metadata from that TTF file, so that it knows what the font family is, what kind of other style it has, and so on. So let's use our QFont database. Font. Now this is throwing us error because we have not included this in the header. Let's include QFont database. I'm still getting error because if you go into your theme directory, into your CMake file, you see we have already linked our libraries. We have only linked the core library, right? Now also link our this GUI library. If you don't know where this QFont database is coming from, as I already know that it's coming from GUI, but if you don't know, then what you can also do is just go into that class here in your theme manager CPP. I'll just hit F1. Now this opened up this QFont database class as a document on the side. Now if you see on this documentation, it says include QFont database, which we have already done. Now it is saying in CMake, it's trying to find this library from this Qt6 GUI and not from core, right? So we need to include this GUI in our CMake. Qt6 GUI. As soon as I do this, you'll notice that the error from our header will be gone. As soon as we do this, now this is available to use, right? Perfect. And to load the font, we have a function which is application add application font. Now this add application font is responsible to add fonts with the help of the path, and the path should be coming from our KRC, right? So now we have to send the parameter as a path. Now where do we have kept all those paths? Inside our JSON, and through that we have also pulled that path into this variable now, right? Each of the path will come here, and then each of the path will go through this function. And if I go here and hit F1 here again, if you see this function, what is it returning? Let's figure this out. Okay, it is returning an integer value, and that integer value, it says that the function returns -1 if the font could not be loaded. So if it returns -1, that means that the font is not loaded, and that will throw you an error. And we'll also put a flag to check if it is giving us -1 or not. And just in case it returns any integer value, that would be an ID. An ID is returned that can be used to remove the font again and remove application font to retrieve the list of family names contained in the font. Okay, now what is it saying? This function here, add application font, takes the path of our font as a parameter. As soon as we do that, if it returns -1, then that means that the font is not loaded. And if it returns an integer value, that means that those integer values is ID to your font family name. That ID is created from where? Imagine this function loads the font and reads the TTF file, and then if cannot load those TTF files, then it will just return -1, which is an error. And if it is successfully reads all the data from TTF file, then it will return you what? The index of that file, or let's say ID of that file. which will connect, like which will store the family name. That's how it works. Now this function is aware of our TTF file. It's not just loading any random file, but actually loading the font, and then it is going to store it inside the application to be able to use it. Only then we can use that function, but use that font. No matter how many times you add in your QRC file, no matter how many times you include in your source project, it will not be added into your application. This is how you add the font into actual application so that you can use it in your system. So let's provide path to this function, and let's also store, this is going to return us an integer, right? So I'll say int id and store this function here. And then here I also want to check if this id is equal to -1. That means that our font was failed to load. So I'll just send q warning, and this warning will say font failed to load, right? So when this situation comes, it just means that the font was not loaded. And just in case else, if there is no -1, then the font was successfully loaded. And what we want to do is, as soon as you load all those fonts, we also want to keep it inside our application family name. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to call this function QFontDatabase, and we'll say application font families, and then we're going to give the ID here. Now what is happening? See, what is happening here? This is basically it. This is all we have to do. So see, what is happening here? We are first going inside our path list in our JSON file. We are reaching out to each of these paths one by one, right? And then we are putting this through the function, all of these two fonts, all the 8 fonts, path of these fonts into our this function here, which is add application font. This path is been given here as a parameter, and then it is storing some integer value into this ID, and this ID we are also adding it as a font families, right? So that as soon as you call the font family, let's say as soon as you say Ubuntu, it knows all the family that this Ubuntu has with the help of that exact ID. Now when you say ubuntu.bold, it knows that you are saying I need bold, this load the font from this path. When you say ubuntu.medium, it knows that you want to load font from this path. Even though you have only given Ubuntu and Open Sans directly here, the system just knows, the QFontDatabase just knows that you want to load either the bold or light or medium or regular just through the family name, just through that ID, right? So that's all. If I go back to our theme manager CPP, this seems good. Now this function here, QVariant load theme, is returning us the QVariant map. I want to make this void, and I'll tell you why. Okay, and this will not return flat. So if this is void, then this will return nothing, right? So I will also change this in our header file. This load theme will be void. Now if I go back to our theme manager CPP, how can the QML use this then? For that, what I'm going to do is this flat keyword, I'm going to remove this here. I'll just have this directly in our header file. I'll say make a private member, let's say QVariant map, which is a flat, let's say, right? This is the variable that we are using inside our here CPP. So the flatten function will flat all the things from our JSON file, and that will be stored in our flat, right? Like this key and value, right? If you have seen the previous part, then you already know what I'm saying. The key and value that is being given by this function, flatten function, will be stored in this flat variable. And this variable now is globally accessible. Before, what we had this function returning the flattened values, but instead what we're doing is we're not returning anything from this function, but instead we are declaring this variable globally instead of just declaring it locally inside this function. This function is local, like now declared globally, and is ready to be used anywhere outside the function. So we can just get these values directly from this variable, which stores these values, right? I hope this is not confusing. And implicit initialization on defined template QMap. Okay, it doesn't have a Q variant included here, so I'll include Q variant map. Q variant map. As soon as I do this, I'll just remove the redundant declaration from here. Oh, it doesn't even have it. That's fine. Perfect. Now we also need to get this load theme, right? To be able to do that, what I want to do is I'm gonna create another function here, and that function will be, let's say, now this, no, we don't want to get this function at all. We just want to get this value, which is all. I have kept this in private, so I need a getter to get this value to be used in other classes. I'll create a getter here, and I'll say get get theme, and this will return a Q variant. Now, why am I exactly doing this? Now you might be confused. Like we're already doing something, like making this load theme was Q variant, and it was working fine. I know it was working fine. But as soon as you're going to call this function again and again, we don't want to keep on like updating some values. So, but as soon as you do this, you're only reaching out to your variable. That's it, and it will help us in the future. You'll see why. So inside this get theme, let's refactor this and add definition in theme manager CPP. Here we're gonna return the global flat variable. And now get theme is responsible for giving you the actual Q variant instead of load theme. And now this load theme will provide entirely different purpose in this application. The purpose it was holding before is being now replaced by this get theme, and this load theme will now behave or give you a different purpose, which is very important in our application. So we have this, but if you run this, we'll get error because we are trying to call load theme into our app.hpp here in our app.cpp. We are inside this palette here. We are saying qvariant map palette, and then we are calling this load theme, which is not returning anything. So instead of this load theme here, I'll just say flat. Oh no, not flat. We have this function, what? Get theme, right? Okay, perfect. Now this get theme will give you the qvariant map, and then you can return it in your palette. Perfect. Still getting error here. See, good enough. Now what we want to do is we also need to check if our everything is working or not. Let's see if the font is properly being loaded or not. In here we have everything ready. We have qvariant map palette. Seems good. In this function we have called this. Okay, let's rebuild this. Rebuild. Let's see if we have any errors or not. It's been built perfectly. Let's run our application. Now we don't have anything, and or that the background is changed back to something different. Let's fix this. That our default theme for our background, the value is fine. This is the exact value. That's good. Inside our app.hpp or app.cpp, palette function is being called from our QML, right? Palette dot something, color dot something. Good enough. Get theme, which is giving you the flat palette. Instead, I'll just say turn this. Okay, and that default theme background is good. The value is good. And if I go to our login.html, where we have given this color in our background, this background here, color dot primary is the background. Okay, let's run it again. Now we have some error here, unable to assign color to QColor. It's saying that it's unable to bring this color, right? And then let's figure out why this is happening. Now this QVariant map is storing a QVariant data from our function here, right? It has this flattened function calling this, which is fine. Return flat, and getTheme is returning this flat. Good enough. And we have not yet called our load theme. So load theme, and we will just load theme this function in the constructor as soon as you create the instance of this, because before we were just directly calling the load theme, which was the actual function that was loading the default theme.json file. But right now we don't even have that file. So as soon as you call this function, you're not just reaching out to this, but also loading everything here. And then when you call this get theme function, you will reach out to this flat. But if you have not initialized this function, even if you reach out to this flat, what values will this flattened raw theme will have, right? Because you didn't even reach out to this file. So let's see. Now I should fix these things. Now see, it is fixed. Now everything is good. At this point, everything seems good, but we have yet not used the fonts that we have loaded. So let's do that. So our font is kept inside what? This font 1 and font 2, right? So inside our app.hpp in the palette is where doing so. Let's go into this login.kml, and in our first text, which is Lunara text, here, let's call that font family. Okay, so we'll say font.family, and this will return, let's say app.palette, capital P, palette, and then this will return what in our JSON? Typography, font family, and font 1, right? Okay. Login.qml, typography dot font family dot font 1. Perfect. Now what do I want? If I run this, now this font is changed. Do you believe this font is changed or not? I'll just not close this, and I'll just comment this out and then run again. This is the normal font, and I already have another application running here. So if you see side by side, this font has already changed. Now this has, look at this R, it's a bit different than what this is, right? You can see the difference between these two fonts, right? This is kind of different. And if I want to, let's say, use bold for this font, what I will do is, we'll say font, and I'll say font.weight qt, sorry, font dot bold. And if I run this, now you have something like this. This is Lunara text, but this has Ubuntu font, and now it is reaching out to the bold one. But we have not even said anything about, in the font one, we have not said anything about the bold path or anything, but as soon as you say font.bold, it knows that you are trying to access to bold font, which is this ubuntu bold.ttf file. This is all aware in the, this thing is all being um, already being like kept inside the QFontDatabase, so it knows what you are trying to call. You are trying to reach out to this ubuntu bold font, it knows it. So when you don't use this bold here, then it doesn't know, it will just load the default size, let's say medium or something. But if you say, let's say light here, let's try light, to load the light of our Lunara, right? This is how it works. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna load all these values for our font 1, font 2, and all the colors. Before we had only changed the background like this, app.palette, typography, font family dot font 1, and we have only changed the value here in the background, app.palette. But I don't want to keep on writing this app.palette for everything. So what I'll do is I'll come here, I'll create a property variable, and I'll say theme, and this will store this app.palette. Now I don't have to keep on using this app.palette for here because this is a long name, right? We'll just say theme, and this will just work the same way. Use theme here as well. Instead of app.palette, which is a long name, we'll just use theme. So if we run this again, working fine, right? We'll change this back to bold, and again let's run and see. Okay, perfect. Now let's like give all these hard-coded values and use all the values from the JSON instead. Instead of using the hard-coded value, let's use the JSON value. So let's change it. I'll just copy this, and here in the color, what is this? Logo, right? So for logo, what color was it using? 262B38. I don't know what that color is. See here, 26238 is the surface color. Go back to our main.qml, paste it here, and I'll say surface, right? This is color primary surface, and this is border color. So we have something for color.primary.border. Now we need to replace all the hard-coded values so that everything is coming from our JSON. So I'll say color here for this rectangle is white, so I'll just leave white. And the text color, let's say color.text dot regular. I guess we have something called regular in our JSON. We have something called regular for our text, right, which is white. And I'll go inside our login again, and everything is done here. Name here, I'll just copy this regular, and while doing so, just try to run it once in a while, so see if your UI is behaving like the exact way. If I run again, we'll see if something is working. Yeah, everything is working fine. So all the hard-coded values are replaced here. Also here the color is login area. Login area is the surface, right? So color dot primary dot surface. Perfect. The border color is just border color. This dot border. Make sure to also change the name of your text, okay? Title 2. Now Lunara is fine. Title 2 should be what this font should be, font 2. So right after font.pixel size, I'll say font.family, and here will just be typography, and this text would be font family, and this is going to be font 2. Similarly, we'll fill all of these up. So I'll just pause the video and fill all of these up in your theme. here. If you want to see any of the changes, if you are confused while doing so, you can just go to the description and see the code. But if I manually change it all here in the video, it will be way too long. So I'll completely change all these hard-coded values and then use our values from the JSON instead, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I have changed manually all of the values coming directly from our function. So our rectangle has this theme color coming from background, background is coming color from background, and logo has the color. These two, just pause it wherever you want to change your values. For Lunara, this is where we have given the text regular size, and we have used the font 1. For any title, we have used font 1, and for the regular text, we have used the font 2, right? So like the title 2, which is the professional video player, is using font 2. And we have also used the size as a font.medium. This is using font.medium, while this is using font.bold. And similarly, we have used color surface for login area. We use this border color directly coming in. Nothing has hard-coded value, right? Not for color and not for font. So see here, everything looks good enough. Just pause wherever you want to see what the changes are. One here, these are here, these are here. We have used font.normal. This normal means regular. Okay, if you want to reach out to regular, if you use regular, it will not find regular, but Qt has this normal, which just reaches out to the regular ID. So use normal instead of regular, even though the name regular is given in your font. So font.normal, this seems good. Now here, because now I started the video again because we want to change few things for our button. So for button, let's go into our default theme.json file, and I'll say here text for, let's say, fields. And text for our fields means that the field, whatever text we are going to use inside our, let's say, email or password field, will also have a different color than the regular text, right? So I'll give color here as, let's say, white. I mean, not necessary, but you can, like, have all as many features as you want. And just like text, we have the color for text, we have the color for this thing here, the component. Let's create a color for our button. I'll say button, and this will store what color for our button when before it is clicked and after it is clicked. So let's say click will have a certain color, and on click will have a certain color. Let's say on hover, I need a different color for our button. So to fulfill this purpose, we will use this. Okay, and let's go to our Figma here, and then let's see what color we have used for this button here. I'll just take the color. So this is our regular color for our button, right? So any type of button with a click will have this color, and then as soon as somebody hovers on it, I want to change this color, something, let's say, a bit darker. Let's say this color. Use this one when somebody is hovering on the button. And to bring out the hover effect, what we'll do is first we'll use this click in our button, this color instead of red. So if you go into login.qml, in your sign in button, now the color is just red, right? So I'll change this to theme, and it will say color, sorry, color dot button dot click. Fine. And then if I run this, we have something of this color, but as soon as I hover, I want a different color here. So I'll say inside the mouse area, I'll say hover enabled, and that is true. I'll say on entered, the signal will see if you have entered the mouse area And as you take the cursor inside this button, it is notified. And then when you take your cursor inside the button, we want to change the color. So we'll say this parent dot color should equal to our on click color. Take this. Oh, we don't even need to take this. We just need to call this, right? So inside your login.qml, just be like theme should be color dot button dot what on click, right? Good. And it will use equal to here because this takes JavaScript, right? So similarly on exited, as soon as you come out of the button, we want to go back to the normal color. Okay, on exited, want to go back to the normal button colors, which is this one. So instead of color equal to, and we'll change the color of our parent color. Let's see. If I run our application, this is something we have. And hover, color is changing, right? Everything is working fine. The font is all applied all over our application, just not in our this sign-in text. So let's also use this in sign-in text. Here it's taking a white color, so I'll say just copy from here. This is taking a font family, font weight, normal, and color. Great. Good. Just to here the color, and I'll say instead of using font 2, yeah, use font 2, that's fine. And instead of normal, I'll say bold or sign in button. Perfect. Okay, now everything is fine. Now we need a way to change the theme, right? As soon as you change the theme, your entire GUI needs to be changed. Now it looks all good. Say now it looks clean. It has our own font in use. We have our own color in use. All of these properties are coming from JSON. So what happens when you change this JSON file? When you change the JSON file, all of these values will also be changed, changing the GUI itself. So I'll create another JSON file, and let me create another JSON file here. Say terminal and ls. Good. We have these fonts here, and we have this default theme.json file here. I'll create another file. Let's say touch inside our theme directory. Okay, I'll say orange theme. Oh, no, let's not say orange. Let's say warm theme dot JSON. Keep this capital, or you can keep whatever you want. Warm theme dot. Seems good. Now we have this JSON file created here, but it is not being tried to ls. It is here, warm theme.json, but it's not inside our project. So let's go inside this theme QRC and then load that file. Open an editor. I'll say add file, and I'll say where is this warm theme? Okay, I'll load this file. Yes, perfect. Now our default theme is there and our warm theme is there, right? But our warm theme.json file is empty. And now you know how to create these things, right? So what I'll do is I'll just copy paste the warm theme from the file that I have already created, so that I don't have to manually create again to show you. I have a file created here. Okay, this is the values that I need. This here. You see, does it have anything different? Name, color, button on click, click on click, font family, font family, font one. If any field is different, then this will not work. Font path is path, font family, font one. Good enough. Okay, Roboto and Ubuntu. Okay, we don't have a Roboto font here. So for now, do you want to see if the font will change or not? So you can like quickly go and I'll add another font. Let's say a different goofy font. Let's say funky. There's no font. Filters. Let's find a new good looking font to actually see if you change the theme, you will change the font or not. So we'll choose something, something that is like very distinct font as I have something called EXO. I like this. Get this font, and instead of Ubuntu ends, we'll just get the EXO. So I'll download this, and similar to how we have like used the QRC to load the font, similarly let's load our fonts here. Open an editor. Here, add files, and in our downloads, we have this Axel font. If I go, I'll just add 4 fonts: regular, medium, light, and bold. Fine. I use this. Copy, save, copy, save, copy, save, copy. Okay, 4 fonts done. Yes. Now in my second theme, this warm.theme, instead of our first font one is Roboto, I'll change our first one Roboto not to be Roboto. Instead, it will be Axel. The name of this is Axel right here. And second font will be yeah. I mean, Ubuntu is fine, but second font Ubuntu is good. And then we will load this Axel file here. I have 3 files. One more here. What is missing? Regular, medium. Okay, light is missing, so I'll copy this URL. I'll copy this path here. I'll load all the EXO fonts. So bold, copy path. I'll load it here. I don't need to change anything in our source code to change the font. That's what I'm trying to show you. So copy path here and paste it here. So medium, copy path. I'll paste it here. I'm working on my warm theme, okay? And we'll switch the theme. And EXO medium working and regular is left. So copy path and seems good. Now, if you say font one, you will be using EXO. So if I run our application, now by default, it is using the default font. We have any errors? No. We're using the default font, right? So I want to see if we change the file in our theme.cpp here. Instead of default theme, let's try to use our warm theme. Warm theme.json file. Let's see what happens. Right now, see, everything is changed. Now our Lunar text is changed. Our way of things are changed. Our button is changed. Hover effect is changed. Text field is changed. Looking kind of warm type of feeling, giving a different feeling than how it was, right? I'll keep this one here and then just load another one with our default theme. Default theme. If I do that, I'll go back to our default theme and let's see the difference between our two themes. And this happened because of our 2 different file was being loaded into the application, right? So you see the difference in the font, different in the color, in terms of border, all the elevated area. This is all because different values are coming from these 2 different JSON files. One has different values, another have different values. And all the UI is being loaded with these JSON files. Now, what do we want to do is we want to give this option to choose this JSON file to the user. So we include this in the GUI. As we have not created our second page where this theme option should be placed, right now we only have the login page, but in the coming tutorials, we're gonna work on the second page, which has all the, if we see the UI here, our second page will look something like this. And here will be your theme choice, right? But right now we don't have this space, so I'll just use a menu box in the login page itself. So just to test it out, okay, if the user is able to select it or not. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I will create a combo box inside our login file, login.qml, right below our, we run this application. I want a combo box right below here so that I can change the theme from here and everything changes. So what I'll do is right below the second text title 2, I want to add a combo box. This is just like a mini box, okay? We don't have Qt quick controls. We do have Qt capital combo box, and then I'll give this ID like theme selector, and this will give you model as two theme names. Let's say one theme will be, let's say, default, and another theme will be warm. And what, as soon as you do that, I want to call a function here. If you choose right now, if I run this, what happens? Nothing happens. You get this option, right? Default and warm. But as soon as you choose any of the font, we want that font to be loaded into the system, right? So to do that, what we can do is let's go to our theme manager CPP. So we should be able to give it a value here so that different file loads up, right? I'll give it a parameter. Let's say const qstring, and this will give you the name. So name, right, as a reference, and that name should be loaded here. So here I'll say this plus add this name here, and then that will be theme.json file. So whenever you call this load theme with a name, let's say default, which should be coming from our menu box, and that name will be coming here, which will make the symbol, that name, and then the theme.json file, which will call these any of these files. If you say warm, it will just bring out warm theme.json file. If you say default, then default theme.json file will be loaded. Let's change this function also in the header file to take a parameter. So I'll say q string, and this will take a reference our font. Okay, that's good enough. Now we have a way to call our files also when we call this function. So by default, we also need a default font, right? This default font should be loaded by default before the user selects any font. Let's say whenever you open the application, you should have at least a running font or running theme already in the system, right? And then you select something afterward. So also in app.hpp, everything is all well. And let's say we want function, let's say load theme, something that should be callable inside our QML. So I'll say q invocable and void load theme. And this function will do nothing but refactor it inside app.cpp. It will just return so it will keep the theme am theme, let's say, store it inside, store the theme name where we'll call this function and then call the here, and instead of get theme we'll say load theme, and this theme should also have a parameter, right? So I'll say load theme also needs to take the parameter. So here I'll say QString and name is also going to be constant. And inside our CPP, QString name, and this name should be sent to our actual function load theme, which is in our theme manager class, right? So we're just calling this function. We are going to store this function in, I don't think we need to even store this function. You just need to call this function and then it says say init palette changed, because we need to make sure that this application is getting a signal that theme has changed and it needs to load the theme again. Okay. Palette change signal is emitted as soon as you load a theme again through this load theme function. And here, as soon as you start the application, we need some at least one theme to be run as a default as soon as you open the application before the user chooses any font, right? So if I run the application, what is happening right now? Compile out. It's saying load theme, QString load theme here. Okay, now this is taking a parameter, so we'll give default here because it is going to take a name, right? So default. It's good. Let's rebuild this. What is happening? Okay, I want to understand the situation. So by default we have a default theme, but as soon as I move to WOM, is something happening? No, nothing is really changing because we have not called this load theme function from our QML. We have made this invocable here in the app, invocable load theme. Then we want to give the name, right? And we want to call this function from our QML. So in our QML, login.qml, if somebody says load this theme or this theme from the menu, I want to call a function on activated signal on something selected. We want to say app dot load theme and then current name, I guess, current text. So this current text will be sent as a parameter to our load theme function. That is, we have already given the definition inside this app class. So let's see what will happen. As soon as I select WOM, we call back to our WOM theme, and as soon as I do default, I came back to default theme. You see how things are changed? Okay, now this is how you create your theme engine. Now everything, the text, the color, everything is changing. It's all working fine. So in the next episode, we'll make this better. This theme menu will not be here, but in the next page, if you want to use more than 5 themes, that's completely fine. You don't have to change any code. You just have to load 5 JSON files with different properties. That's all. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.